What a bit of luck! The companion to the coveted Pongo figurine is now up for auction. How can Archie secure it? P.G. Wodehouse, today on the Classic Tales podcast. Welcome to the Classic Tales podcast. Thank you for listening. The audiobook library card is moving forward nicely. And if you'd like to see some of our progress, you can go to audiobooklibrarycard.com. It will be an all-you-can-hear, streamable plan for the Classic Tales. In just a few weeks, there will be a subscription that will give you on-demand access to the entire Classic Tales Audiobooks library. The library contains dozens of novel-length titles that have never been on the podcast. Furthermore, folks with businesses, libraries, students, what have you, will be able, for a crazy low monthly subscription, to give complete access to all their people. This will be a great, all-inclusive solution to your audiobook needs. So keep your ears peeled for new developments, and I'll keep you up to date. For those who already support us at the $10 a month rate or more, your subscription will be automatically upgraded to the audiobook library card. Good things are coming. And now, Indiscretions of Archie, Part 3 of 8, by P.G. Wodehouse. Chapter 9, A Letter from Parker. As the days went by, and he settled down at the Hotel Cosmopolis, Archie, looking about him and revising earlier judgments, was inclined to think that of all his immediate circle, he most admired Parker, the lean, grave valet of Mr. Daniel Brewster. He was a man who, living in the closest contact with one of the most difficult persons in New York, contrived all the while to maintain an unbowed head, and as far as one could gather from appearances, a tolerably cheerful disposition. A great man, judge him by what standard you pleased. Anxious as he was to earn an honest living, Archie would not have changed places with Parker for the salary of a movie star. It was Parker who first directed Archie's attention to the hidden merits of Pongo. Archie had drifted into his father-in-law's suite one morning, as he sometimes did in the effort to establish more amicable relations, and had found it occupied only by the valet, who was dusting the furniture and bric-a-brac with a feather broom, rather in the style of a manservant at the rise of the curtain of an old-fashioned farce. After a courteous exchange of greetings, Archie sat down and lit a cigarette. Parker went on dusting. "The governor," said Parker, breaking the silence, "has some nice little objet d'art, sir." "Little what?" "Objet d'art, sir." Light dawned upon Archie. "Oh yes, French for junk, I see what you mean now. Dare say you're right, old friend. Don't know much about these things myself." Parker gave an appreciative flick at a vase on the mantelpiece. "Very valuable, some of the governor's things." He had picked up the small china figure of the warrior with the spear, and was grooming it with the ostentatious care of one brushing flies off a sleeping Venus. He regarded this figure with a look of affectionate esteem, which seemed to Archie absolutely uncalled for. Archie's taste in art was not precious. To his untutored eye, the thing was only 1 degree less foul than his father-in-law's Japanese prints, which he had always observed with silent loathing. "This one now," continued Parker, "worth a lot of money. Oh, a lot of money." "What, Pongo?" said Archie incredulously. "Sir?" "I always call that rummy-looking what-not Pongo. Don't know what else you could call him, what?" The valet seemed to disapprove of this levity. He shook his head and replaced the figure on the mantelpiece. "Worth a lot of money," he repeated. "Not by itself, no." "Oh, not by itself?" "No, sir. Things like this come in pairs. Somewhere or other, there's a companion piece to this here, and if the governor could get hold of it, he'd have something worth having. Something that connoisseurs would give a lot of money for. But one's no good without the other. You have to have both, if you understand my meaning, sir." "I see. Like filling a straight flush, what?" "Precisely, sir." Archie gazed at Pongo again, with the dim hope of discovering virtues not immediately apparent to the casual observer, but without success. Pongo left him cold, even chilly. He would not have taken Pongo as a gift to oblige a dying friend. "How much would the pair be worth?" he asked. $10? Parker smiled a gravely superior smile. "A little more than that, sir. Several $1,000s, more like it." "Do you mean to say," said Archie with honest amazement, "that there are chumps going about loose, absolutely loose, who would pay that for a weird little object like Pongo?" "Undoubtedly, sir. These antique china figures are in great demand among collectors." Archie looked at Pongo once more and shook his head. "Well, well, well. It takes all sorts to make a world, what?" What might be called the revival of Pongo, the restoration of Pongo to the ranks of the things that matter, took place several weeks later, when Archie was making holiday at the house which his father-in-law had taken for the summer at Brookport. The curtain of the second act may be said to rise on Archie strolling back from the golf links in the cool of an August evening. From time to time he sang slightly, and wondered idly if Lucille would put the finishing touch upon the all-rightness of everything by coming to meet him and sharing his homeward walk. She came in view at this moment, a trim little figure in a white skirt and a pale blue sweater. She waved to Archie, and Archie, as always at the sight of her, was conscious of that jumpy, fluttering sensation about the heart, which, translated into words, would have formed the question, what on earth could have made a girl like that fall in love with a chump like me? It was a question which he was continually asking himself, and one which was perpetually in the mind also of Mr. Brewster, his father-in-law. The matter of Archie's unworthiness to be the husband of Lucille was practically the only one on which the two men saw eye to eye. "Hello, hello, hello," said Archie. "Here we are, what? I was just hoping you would drift over the horizon." Lucille kissed him. "You're a darling," she said, "and you look like a Greek god in that suit. Glad you like it." Archie squinted with some complacency down his chest. "I always say it doesn't matter what you pay for a suit, so long as it's right. I hope your jolly old father will feel that way when he settles up for it." "Where is father? Why didn't he come back with you?" "Well, as a matter of fact, he didn't seem any too keen on my company. I left him in the locker room, chewing a cigar. Gave me the impression of having something on his mind." "Oh, Archie, you didn't beat him again?" Archie looked uncomfortable. He gazed out to sea with something of embarrassment. "Well, as a matter of fact, old thing, to be absolutely frank, I, as it were, did." "Not badly?" "Well, yes. I rather fancy I put it across with some vim and not a little emphasis. To be perfectly accurate, I licked him by 10 and 8. "But you promised me you would let him beat you today. You know how pleased it would have made him." "I know. But, light of my soul, have you any idea how dashed difficult it is to get beaten by your festive parent at golf?" "Oh, well," Lucille sighed. "It can't be helped, I suppose." She felt in the pocket of her sweater. "Oh, there's a letter for you. I've just been to fetch the mail. I don't know who it can be from. The handwriting looks like a vampire's, kind of scrawly." Archie inspected the envelope. It provided no solution. "That's rummy. Who could be writing to me?" "Open it and see." "Dashed bright scheme. I will. Herbert Parker. Who the deuce is Herbert Parker?" "Parker? Father's valet's name was Parker, the one he dismissed when he found he was wearing his shirts." "Do you mean to say any reasonable chappie would willingly wear the sort of shirts your father—" "I mean to say, there must have been some mistake." "Do read the letter. I expect he wants to use your influence with father to have him taken back." "My influence? With your father? Well, I'm dashed. Sanguine sort of Johnny if he does. Well, here's what it says. Of course I remember jolly old Parker now, great pal of mine."
"Dear Sir, it is some time since the undersigned had the honour of conversing with you, but I am respectfully trusting that you may recall me to mind when I mention that, until recently, I served Mr. Brewster, your father-in-law, in the capacity of valet. Owing to an unfortunate misunderstanding, I was dismissed from that position, and am now temporarily out of a job. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12.
You know, said Archie admiringly, this bird is hot stuff. I mean to say he writes dashed well.
It is not, however, with my own affairs that I desire to trouble you, dear sir. I have little doubt that all will be well with me, and that I shall not fall like a sparrow to the ground. I have been young and now am old, and yet have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. The 37th Psalm, verse 25. My object in writing to you is as follows. You may recall that I had the pleasure of meeting you one morning in Mr. Brewster's suite, when we had an interesting talk on the subject of Mr. B's objet d'art. You may recall being particularly interested in a small china figure. To assist your memory, the figure to which I allude is the one which you whimsically referred to as Pongo. I informed you, if you remember, that could the accompanying figure be secured, the pair would be extremely valuable. I am glad to say, dear sir, that this has now transpired, and is on view at Beale's Art Galleries on West 45th Street, where it will be sold tomorrow at auction, the sale commencing at 2:30 sharp. If Mr. Brewster cares to attend, he will, I fancy, have little trouble in securing it at a reasonable price. I confess that I had thought of refraining from apprising my late employer of this matter, but more Christian feelings have prevailed. If thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Romans chapter 12, verse 20. Nor, I must confess, am I altogether uninfluenced by the thought that my action in this matter may conceivably lead to Mr. B consenting to forget the past and to reinstate me in my former position. However, I am confident that I can leave this to his good feeling. I remain, respectfully yours, Herbert Parker.
Lucille clapped her hands. How splendid! Father will be pleased. Yes, friend Parker has certainly found a way to make the old dad fond of him. Wish I could. But you can, silly. He'll be delighted when you show him that letter. Yes, with Parker, old Herb. Parker's is the neck he'll fall on, not mine. Lucille reflected. I wish, she began. She stopped. Her eyes lit up. Oh, Archie, darling, I've got an idea. Decant it. Why don't you slip up to New York tomorrow and buy the thing and give it to Father as a surprise? Archie patted her hand kindly. Hated to spoil her girlish daydreams. Yes, he said, but reflect, Queen of my heart. I have at the moment of going to press just $2.50 in specie, which I took off your father this afternoon. We were playing 25 cents a hole. He coughed it up without enthusiasm. In fact, with a nasty hacking sound, but I've got it. But that's all I have got. That's all right. You can pawn that ring and that bracelet of mine. Oh, I say, what? Pop the family jewels? Only for a day or two. Of course, once you've got the thing, Father will pay us back. He will give you all the money we asked him for, if he knew what it was for. But I want to surprise him. And if you were to go to him and ask him for $1,000 without telling him what it was for, he might refuse. He might, said Archie. He might. It all works out splendidly. Tomorrow's the invitation handicap, and Father's been looking forward to it for weeks. He'd hate to have to go up to town himself and not play in it. But you can slip up and slip back without his knowing anything about it. Archie pondered. It sounds like a ripe scheme. Yes, it has all the earmarks of a somewhat fruity wheeze. By Jove, it is a fruity wheeze. It's an egg. An egg? Good egg, you know. Hello, there's a postscript. I didn't see it.
P.S. I should be glad if you would convey my most cordial respects to Mrs. Moom. Will you also inform her that I chanced to meet Mr. William this morning on Broadway, just off the boat. He desired me to send his regards, and to say that he would be joining you at Brookport in the course of a day or so. Mr. B. will be pleased to have him back. A wise son maketh a glad father. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 1.
Who's Mr. William? Asked Archie. My brother Bill, of course. I've told you all about him. "Oh, yes, of course. Your brother Bill. Rummy to think I've got a brother-in-law I've never seen. You see, we married so suddenly. When we married, Bill was in Yale. Good God, what for? Not jail, silly. Yale, the university. Yes. Then he went over to Europe for a trip to broaden his mind. You must look him up tomorrow when you get back to New York. He's sure to be at his club. I'll make a point of it. Well, vote of thanks to good old Parker. This really does begin to look like the point in my career where I start to have your forbidding old parent eating out of my hand. Yes, it's an egg, isn't it? Queen of my soul, said Archie enthusiastically. It's an omelette.
The business negotiations in connection with the bracelet and the ring occupied Archie on his arrival in New York to an extent which made it impossible for him to call on Brother Bill before lunch. He decided to postpone the affecting meeting of brothers-in-law to a more convenient season, and made his way to his favourite table at the Cosmopolis Grill Room for a bite of lunch preliminary to the fatigues of the sale. He found Salvatore hovering about as usual, and instructed him to come to the rescue with a minute steak. Salvatore was a dark, sinister-looking waiter, who attended, among other tables, to the one at the far end of the grill room, at which Archie usually sat. For several weeks Archie's conversations with the other had dealt exclusively with the bill of fare and its contents, but gradually he had found himself becoming more personal. Even before the war and its democratizing influences, Archie had always lacked that reserve which characterizes many Britons, and since the war he had looked on nearly everyone he met as a brother. Long since, through the medium of a series of friendly chats, he had heard all about Salvatore's home in Italy, the little newspaper and tobacco shop which his mother owned down on 7th Avenue, and 100 other personal details. Archie had an insatiable curiosity about his fellow man. "Well done," said Archie. "Sir?"
"The steak. Not too rare, you know."
"Very good, sir."
Archie looked at the waiter closely. His tone had been subdued and sad. Of course, you don't expect a waiter to beam all over his face and give 3 rousing cheers simply because you have asked him to bring you a minute steak. But still, there was something about Salvatore's manner that disturbed Archie. The man appeared to have the pip. Whether he was merely homesick and brooding on the lost delights of his sunny native land, or whether his trouble was more definite, could only be ascertained by enquiry, so Archie enquired. "What's the matter, laddie?" he said sympathetically. "Something on your mind?"
"Sir?"
"I say there seems to be something on your mind. What's the trouble?" The waiter shrugged his shoulders, as if indicating an unwillingness to inflict his grievances on one of the tipping classes. "Come on," persisted Archie encouragingly. "All pals here. Barge along, old thing, and let's have it." Salvatore, thus admonished, proceeded in a hurried undertone, with one eye on the head waiter, to lay bare his soul. What he said was not very coherent, but Archie could make out enough of it to gather that it was a sad story of excessive hours and insufficient pay. He mused a while. The waiter's hard case touched him. "I'll tell you what," he said at last. "When jolly old Brewster comes back to town, he's away just now, I'll take you along to him, and we'll beard the old boy in his den. I'll introduce you, and you get that extract from Italian opera off your chest, which you've just been singing to me, and you'll find it'll be all right. He isn't what you might call one of my greatest admirers, but everybody says he's a square sort of cove, and he'll see you aren't snooted. And now, laddie, touching the matter of that steak." The waiter disappeared, greatly cheered, and Archie, turning, perceived that his friend Reggie Van Tuyl was entering the room. He waved to him to join his table. He liked Reggie, and it also occurred to him that a man of the world like the heir of the Van Tuyls, who had been popping about New York for years, might be able to give him some much-needed information on the procedure at an auction sale, a matter on which he himself was profoundly ignorant. Chapter 10. Doing Father a Bit of Good. Reggie Van Tuyl approached the table languidly and sank down into a chair. He was a long youth, with a rather subdued and deflated look, as though the burden of the Van Tuyl millions was more than his frail strength could support. Most things tired him. "I say, Reggie, old top," said Archie, "you're just the lad I wanted to see. I require the assistance of a blighter of ripe intellect. Tell me, laddie, do you know anything about sales?" Reggie eyed him sleepily.
"Sales?"
"Auction sales."
Reggie considered.
"Well, they're sales, you know."
He checked a yawn.
"Auction sales, you understand?" "Yes," said Archie encouragingly. "Something, that name or something, seemed to tell me that. Fellows put things up for sale, you know, and other fellows go in and buy 'em, if you follow me." "Yes, but what's the procedure? I mean, what do I do? That's what I'm after. I've got to buy something at Beale's this afternoon. How do I set about it?"
"Well," said Reggie, drowsily, "there are several ways of bidding, you know. You can shout, or you can nod, or you can twiddle your fingers."
The effort of concentration was too much for him. He leaned back limply in his chair.
"I'll tell you what. I have nothing to do this afternoon. I'll come with you and show you."
When he entered the art galleries a few minutes later, Archie was glad of the moral support of even such a wobbly reader as Reggie Van Tool. There is something about an auction room which weighs heavily upon the novice. The hushed interior was bathed in a dim, religious light, and the congregation, seated on small wooden chairs, gazed in reverent silence at the pulpit, where a gentleman of commanding presence and sparkling pince-nez was delivering a species of chant. Behind a gold curtain at the end of the room, mysterious forms flitted to and fro. Archie, who had been expecting something on the lines of the New York Stock Exchange, which he had once been privileged to visit when it was in a more than usually feverish mood, found the atmosphere oppressively ecclesiastical. He sat down and looked about him. The presiding priest went on with his chant.
16, 16, 16, 16, 16, worth 300. 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, ought to be 500. 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 19.
He stopped and eyed the worshippers with a glittering and reproachful eye. They had, it seemed, disappointed him. His lips curled and he waved a hand towards a grimly uncomfortable-looking chair with insecure legs and a good deal of gold paint about it.
"Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, you are not here to waste my time, and I am not here to waste yours. Am I seriously offered $19 for this 18th century chair, acknowledged to be the finest piece sold in New York for months and months, am I? 20, I thank you. 20, 20, 20, 20, your opportunity, priceless, very few extant. 25, 5, 5, 5, 30, 30, just what you are looking for, the only one in the city of New York, 35, 5, 5, 5, 40, 40, 40, 40, 40. Look at those legs. Back it into the light, Willie. Let the light fall on those legs."
Willie, a sort of acolyte, manoeuvred the chair as directed. Reggie Van Tool, who had been yawning in a hopeless sort of way, showed his first flicker of interest.
"Willie,"
he observed, eyeing that youth more with pity than reproach,
"has a face like Jojo the dog-faced boy, don't you think so?"
Archie nodded briefly. Precisely the same criticism had occurred to him.
45, 5, 5, 5, 5,
chanted the high priest.
"Once 45, twice 45, third and last call, 45, sold at 45. Gentleman in the 5th row."
Archie looked up and down the row with a keen eye. He was anxious to see who had been chump enough to give $45 for such a frightful object. He became aware of the dog-faced Willie leaning towards him.
"Name, please?"
said the canine one. What?" said Archie. "Oh, my name's Moom, don't you know?" The eyes of the multitude made him feel a little nervous. Glad to meet you and all that sort of rot."
$10 deposit, please,"
said Willie. "I don't absolutely follow you, old bean. What is the big thought at the back of all this?"
$10 deposit on the chair."
"What chair?" "You bid $45 for the chair." "Me?"
"You nodded," said Willie accusingly. "If," he went on, reasoning closely, "you didn't want to bid, why did you nod?"
Archie was embarrassed. He could, of course, have pointed out that he had merely nodded in adhesion to the statement that the other had a face like Jojo the dog-faced boy, but something seemed to tell him that a purist might consider the excuse deficient in tact. He hesitated a moment, then handed over a $10 bill, the price of Willie's feelings. Willie withdrew like a tiger, slinking from the body of its victim. "I say, old thing," said Archie to Reggie, "this is a bit thick, you know. No purse will stand this drain." Reggie considered the matter. His face seemed drawn under the mental strain. "Don't nod again," he advised. "If you aren't careful, you get into the habit of it. When you want to bid, just twiddle your fingers. That's the thing. Twiddle." He sighed drowsily. The atmosphere of the auction room was close. You weren't allowed to smoke, and altogether he was beginning to regret that he had come. The service continued. Objects of varying unattractiveness came and went, eulogized by the officiating priest, but coldly received by the congregation. Relations between the former and the latter were growing more and more distant. The congregation seemed to suspect the priest of having an ulterior motive in his eulogies, and the priest seemed to suspect the congregation of a frivolous desire to waste his time. He had begun to speculate openly as to whether they were there at all. Once, when a particularly repellent statuette of a nude female with an unwholesome green skin had been offered at $2 and had found no bidders, the congregation appearing silently grateful for a statement that it was the only specimen of its kind on the continent, he had specifically accused them of having come into the auction room merely with the purpose of sitting down and taking the weight off their feet.
"If your thing, your whatever it is, doesn't come up soon, Archie," said Reggie, fighting off with an effort the mists of sleep, "I rather think I shall be toddling along. What is it you came to get?"
"It's rather difficult to describe. It's a rummy-looking sort of whatnot, made of china or something. I call it Pongo. At least this one isn't Pongo, don't you know? It's his little brother, but presumably equally foul in every respect. It's all rather complicated, I know, but hello!" He pointed excitedly. "By Jove, we're off! There it is, look! Willie's unleashing it now." Willie, who had disappeared through the gold curtain, had now returned, and was placing on a pedestal a small china figure of delicate workmanship. It was the figure of a warrior in a suit of armour advancing with raised spear upon an adversary. A thrill permeated Archie's frame. Parker had not been mistaken. This was undoubtedly the companion figure to the redoubtable Pongo. The two were identical. Even from where he sat, Archie could detect on the features of the figure on the pedestal the same expression of insufferable complacency which had alienated his sympathies from the original Pongo. The high priest, undaunted by previous rebuffs, regarded the figure with a gloating enthusiasm, wholly unshared by the congregation, who were plainly looking upon Pongo's little brother as just another of those things. "This," he said with a shake in his voice, "is something very special. China figure, said to date back to the Ming Dynasty, unique. Nothing like it on either side of the Atlantic. If I were selling this at Christie's in London, where people," he said nastily, "have an educated appreciation of the beautiful, the rare, and the exquisite, I should start the bidding at $1,000. This afternoon's experience has taught me that that might possibly be too high." His pince-nez sparkled militantly as he gazed upon the stolid throng. "Will anyone offer me $1 for this unique figure?" "Leap at it, old top," said Reggie Van Tool. "Twiddle, dear boy, twiddle. $1's reasonable." Archie twiddled. $1 I am offered," said the high priest bitterly. "One gentleman here is not afraid to take a chance. One gentleman here knows a good thing when he sees one." He abandoned the gently sarcastic manner for one of crisp and direct reproach. Come, gentlemen, we are not here to waste time. Will anyone offer me $100 for this superb piece of—" He broke off, and seemed for a moment almost unnerved. He stared at someone in one of the seats in front of Archie. "Thank you," he said with a sort of gulp. $100 I am offered. 100. Archie was startled. This sudden tremendous jump, this wholly unforeseen boom in Pongos, if one might so describe it, was more than a little disturbing. He could not see who his rival was, but it was evident that at least one among those present did not intend to allow Pongo's brother to slip by without a fight. He looked helplessly at Reggie for counsel, but Reggie had now definitely given up the struggle. Exhausted nature had done its utmost, and now he was leaning back with closed eyes, breathing softly through his nose. Thrown on his own resources, Archie could think of no better course than to twiddle his fingers again. He did so, and the high priest's chant took on a note of positive exuberance. 200 I am offered. Much better. Turn the pedestal round, Willie, and let them look at it. Slowly. Slowly. You aren't spinning a roulette wheel. 200, 22222. He became suddenly lyrical. 222. There was a young lady named Lou who was catching a train at 22. Said the porter, don't worry or hurry or scurry. It's a minute or two to 22. 22222. Archie's concern increased. He seemed to be twiddling at this voluble man across seas of misunderstanding. Nothing is harder to interpret to a nicety than a twiddle, and Archie's idea of the language of twiddles and the high priest's idea did not coincide by a mile. The high priest appeared to consider that when Archie twiddled, it was his intention to bid in hundreds, whereas in fact Archie had meant to signify that he raised the previous bid by just $1. Archie felt that if given time, he could make this clear to the high priest, but the latter gave him no time. He had got his audience, so to speak, on the run, and he proposed to hustle them before they could rally. 200, 200, 2, 3, thank you, sir. 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 7. Archie sat limply in his wooden chair. He was conscious of a feeling which he had only experienced twice in his life. Once when he had taken his first lesson in driving a motor and had trodden on the accelerator instead of the brake. The second time more recently, when he had made his first down trip on an express lift. He had now precisely the same sensation of being run away with by an uncontrollable machine, and of having left most of his internal organs at some little distance from the rest of his body. Emerging from this welter of emotion, stood out the one clear fact that, be the opposition bidding what it might, he must nevertheless secure the prize. Lucille had sent him to New York expressly to do so. She had sacrificed her jewelry for the cause. She relied on him. The enterprise had become, for Archie, something almost sacred. He felt dimly like a knight of old hot on the track of the Holy Grail. He twiddled again. The ring in the bracelet had fetched nearly $1,200. Up to that figure his hat was in the ring. 800 I am offered, 800, 8888. A voice spoke from somewhere at the back of the room. A quiet, old, nasty, determined voice. 9. Archie rose from his seat and spun round. This mean attack from the rear stung his fighting spirit. As he rose, a young man sitting immediately in front of him rose too, and stared likewise. He was a square-built, resolute-looking young man, who reminded Archie vaguely of somebody he had seen before. But Archie was too busy trying to locate the man at the back to pay much attention to him. He detected him at last, owing to the fact that the eyes of everybody in that part of the room were fixed upon him. He was a small man of middle age, with tortoise-shell-rimmed spectacles. He might have been a professor or something of the kind. Whatever he was obviously a man to be reckoned with. He had a rich sort of look, and his demeanour was the demeanour of a man who is prepared to fight it out on these lines if it takes all the summer. 900 I am offered, 9. Archie glared defiantly at the spectacled man. 1,000, he cried. The eruption of high finance into the placid course of the afternoon's proceedings had stirred the congregation out of its lethargy. There were excited murmurs, necks were craned, feet shuffled. As for the high priest, his cheerfulness was now more than restored, and his faith in his fellow man had soared from the depths to a very lofty altitude. He beamed with approval. Despite the warmth of his praise, he would have been quite satisfied to see Pongo's little brother go at $20, and the reflection that the bidding had already reached 1,000, and that his commission was 20%, had engendered a mood of sunny happiness. 1,000 is bid, he caroled. Now, gentlemen, I don't want to hurry you over this. You're all connoisseurs here, and you don't want to see a priceless china figure of the Ming dynasty get away from you at a sacrifice price. Perhaps you can't all see the figure where it is. Willie, take it round and show it to him. We'll take a little intermission while you look carefully at this wonderful figure. Get a move on, Willie. Pick up your feet. Archie, sitting dazedly, was aware that Reggie Van Tool had finished his beauty sleep and was addressing the young man in the seat in front. "Why, hello," said Reggie. "I didn't know you were back. You remember me, don't you, Reggie Van Tool? I know your sister well. Archie, old man, I want you to meet my friend, Bill Brewster. Why, dash it," he chuckled sleepily. "I was forgetting, of course. He's your—" "How are you?" said the young man. "Talking of my sister," he said to Reggie. I suppose you haven't met her husband by any chance? I suppose you know she married some awful chump."
"Me,"
said Archie. "How's that?"
"I married your sister. My name's Moom."
The young man seemed a trifle taken aback. "Sorry," he said.
"Not at all,"
said Archie. "I was only going by what my father said in his letters," he explained in extenuation.
Archie nodded. "I'm afraid your jolly old father doesn't appreciate me, but I'm hoping for the best. If I can rope in that rummy-looking little China thing that Jojo the dog-faced boy is showing the customers, he will be all over me. I mean to say, he's got another like it, and if he can get the full house, as it were, I'm given to understand he'll be bucked, cheered, and even braced."
The young man stared. "Are you the fellow who's been bidding against me?"
"Eh, what? Were you bidding against me?"
"I wanted to buy the thing for my father. I have a special reason for wanting to get in right with him just now. Are you buying it for him too?"
"Absolutely. As a surprise. It was Lucille's idea. His valet, a chappie named Parker, tipped us off that the thing was to be sold."
"Parker? Great Scott! It was Parker who tipped me off. I met him on Broadway, and he told me about it."
"Rummy, he never mentioned it in his letter to me. Why, dash it, we could have got the thing for about $2 if we had pooled our bids."
"Well, we'd better pool them now, and extinguish that pill at the back there. I can't go above 1100. That's all I've got."
"I can't go above 1100 myself."
"There's just one thing. I wish you'd let me be the one to hand the thing over to Father. I have a special reason for wanting to make a hit with him."
"Absolutely," said Archie magnanimously. "It's all the same to me. I only wanted to get him generally braced, as it were, if you know what I mean."
"That's awfully good of you."
"Not a bit, laddie, no, and far from it. Only too glad."
Willie had returned from his rambles among the connoisseurs, and Pongo's brother was back on his pedestal. The high priest cleared his throat and resumed his discourse. "Now that you've all seen this superb figure, we will, I was offered 1,000, 1,000, 1,111, 1,100. Thank you, sir. 1,100 I am offered."
The high priest was now exuberant. You could see him doing figures in his head.
"You do the bidding,"
said Brother Bill. "Righto," said Archie. He waved a defiant hand.
13,
said the man at the back. 14, dash it.
15,
16,
17,
18,
19,
2,000. The high priest did everything but sing. He radiated goodwill and bonhomie.
2,000 I am offered. Is there any advance on 2,000? Come, gentlemen, I don't want to give this superb figure away. 2,100, 21,111. This is more the sort of thing I've been accustomed to. When I was at Sotheby's rooms in London, this kind of bidding was a commonplace. 22,222. One hardly noticed it. 333, 2333, $2,300 I am offered."
He gazed expectantly at Archie, as a man gazes at some favourite dog whom he calls upon to perform a trick. But Archie had reached the end of his tether. The hand that had twiddled so often and so bravely lay inert beside his trouser leg, twitching feebly. Archie was through.
2,300,
said the high priest ingratiatingly. Archie made no movement. There was a tense pause. The high priest gave a little sigh, like one waking from a beautiful dream.
2,300, he said. Once 23, twice 23, third last and final 23. Sold at 2,300. I congratulate you, sir, on a genuine bargain.
Reggie Van Tool had dozed off again. Archie tapped his brother-in-law on the shoulder. "May as well be popping, what?" They threaded their way sadly together through the crowd and made for the street. They passed into Fifth Avenue without breaking the silence. "Bally nuisance," said Archie at last.
"Rotten.
Wonder who that chappie was."
"Some collector, probably."
"Well, it can't be helped," said Archie. Brother Bill attached himself to Archie's arm and became communicative.
"I didn't want to mention it in front of Van Tool," he said, "because he's such a talking machine and it would have been all over New York before dinner time. But you're one of the family, and you can keep a secret."
"Absolutely. Silent tomb and what not."
"The reason I wanted that darn thing was because I've just got engaged to a girl over in England, and I thought that if I could hand my father that China figure thing with one hand and break the news with the other, it might help a bit. She's the most wonderful girl."
"I'll bet she is,"
said Archie, cordially. "The trouble is, she's in the chorus of one of the revues over there, and Father is apt to kick. So I thought, oh well, it's no good worrying now. Come along where it's quiet, and I'll tell you all about her." "That'll be jolly," said Archie. Chapter 11. Salvatore chooses the wrong moment. Archie reclaimed the family jewellery from its temporary home next morning, and having done so, sauntered back to the Cosmopolis. He was surprised on entering the lobby to meet his father-in-law. More surprising still, Mr. Brewster was manifestly in a mood of extraordinary geniality. Archie could hardly believe his eyes when the other waved cheerily to him, nor his ears a moment later when Mr. Brewster, addressing him as "my boy," asked him how he was, and mentioned that the day was a warm one. Obviously this jovial frame of mind must be taken advantage of, and Archie's first thought was of the downtrodden Salvatore, to the tale of whose wrongs he had listened so sympathetically on the previous day. Now was plainly the moment for the waiter to submit his grievance, before some ebb tide caused the milk of human kindness to flow out of Daniel Brewster. With a swift "cheerio" in his father-in-law's direction, Archie bounded into the grill-room. Salvatore, the hour for luncheon being imminent but not yet having arrived, was standing against the far wall in an attitude of thought. "Laddie!" cried Archie. "Sir?" "A most extraordinary thing has happened. Good old Brewster has suddenly popped up through a trap and is out in the lobby now, and what's still more weird, he's apparently bucked." "Sir?" "Braced, you know, in the pink, pleased about something. If you go to him now with that yarn of yours, you can't fail. He'll kiss you on both cheeks and give you his bankroll and call a stud. Charge along and ask the head waiter if you can have 10 minutes off." Salvatore vanished in search of the potentate named, and Archie returned to the lobby to bask in the unwonted sunshine. "Well, well, well, what?" he said. "I thought you were at Brookport." "I came up this morning to meet a friend of mine," replied Mr. Brewster genially. "Professor Binstead." "Don't think I know him." "Very interesting man," said Mr. Brewster, still with the same uncanny amiability. "He's a dabbler in a good many things, science, phrenology, antiques. I asked him to bid for me at a sale yesterday. There was a little china figure." Archie's jaw fell. "China figure?" he stammered feebly. "Yes, the companion to the one you may have noticed on my mantelpiece upstairs. I have been trying to get the pair of them for years. I should never have heard of this one if it had not been for that valet of mine, Parker. Very good of him to let me know of it, considering I fired him. Ah, here's Binstead." He moved to greet the small, middle-aged man with the tortoise-shell-rimmed spectacles who was bustling across the lobby. "Well, Binstead, so you got it?" "Yes. I suppose the price wasn't particularly stiff." $2,300. $2,300? Mr. Brewster seemed to reel in his tracks. 2,300? You gave me carte blanche. Yes, but 2,300? I could have got it for a few dollars, but unfortunately I was a little late, and when I arrived, some young fool had bid it up to 1,000, and he stuck to me till I finally shook him off at 2,300. Why, this is the very man. Is he a friend of yours?" Archie coughed. "More a relation than a friend, what? Son-in-law, don't you know?" Mr. Brewster's amiability had vanished. "What damned foolery have you been up to now?" he demanded. "Can't I move a step without stubbing my toe on you? Where the devil did you bid?" "We thought it would be a rather fruity scheme. We talked it over and came to the conclusion that it was an egg. Wanted to get hold of the rummy little object, don't you know, and surprise you." "Who's we?" "Lucille and I."
"But how did you hear of it all?"
"Parker, the valet chappie, you know, wrote me a letter about it."
"Parker? Didn't he tell you that he had told me the figure was to be sold?"
"Absolutely not." A sudden suspicion came to Archie. He was normally a guileless young man, but even to him the extreme fishiness of the part played by Herbert Parker had become apparent. "I say, you know, it looks to me as if friend Parker had been having us all on a bit, what? I mean to say, it was jolly old Herb who tipped your son off, Bill, you know, to go and bid for the thing.
Bill? Was Bill there?
Absolutely in person. We were bidding against each other like the dickens till we managed to get together and get acquainted. And then this bird, this gentleman, sailed in and started to slip it across us. Professor Binstead chuckled, the carefree chuckle of a man who sees all those around him smitten in the pocket while he himself remains untouched. A very ingenious rogue, this Parker of yours, Brewster. His method seems to have been simple but masterly. I have no doubt that either he or a confederate obtained the figure and placed it with the auctioneer, and then he ensured a good price for it by getting us all to bid against each other. Very ingenious. Mr. Brewster struggled with his feelings. Then he seemed to overcome them and to force himself to look on the bright side.
"Well, anyway," he said, "I've got the pair of figures, and that's what I wanted. Is that it, in the parcel?"
"This is it. I wouldn't trust an express company to deliver it. Suppose we go up to your room and see how the two look side by side." They crossed the lobby to the lift. The cloud was still on Mr. Brewster's brow as they stepped out and made their way to his suite. Like most men who have risen from poverty to wealth by their own exertions, Mr. Brewster objected to parting with his money unnecessarily, and it was plain that $2,300 still rankled. Mr. Brewster unlocked the door and crossed the room. Then suddenly he halted, stared, and stared again. He sprang to the bell and pressed it, then stood gurgling wordlessly. "Anything wrong, old bean?" queried Archie solicitously.
"Wrong? Wrong? It's gone!"
"Gone?
"The figure!"
The floor waiter had manifested himself silently in answer to the bell, and was standing in the doorway.
"Simmons?"
Mr. Brewster turned to him wildly.
"Has anyone been in this suite since I went away?"
"No, sir."
"Nobody?"
"Nobody except your valet, sir. Parker. He said he had come to fetch some things away. I supposed he had come from you, sir, with instructions."
"Get out!"
Professor Binstead had unwrapped his parcel and had placed the Pongo on the table. There was a weighty silence. Archie picked up the little china figure and balanced it on the palm of his hand. It was a small thing, he reflected philosophically, but it had made quite a stir in the world. Mr. Brewster fermented for a while without speaking.
"So,"
he said at last, in a voice trembling with self-pity, "I have been to all this trouble." "And expense," put in Professor Binstead gently.
"Merely to buy back something which had been stolen from me. And owing to your damned officiousness," he cried, turning on Archie, "I have had to pay $2,300 for it. I don't know why they made such a fuss about Job. Job never had anything like you around."
"Of course," argued Archie. "He had one or two boils."
"Boils? What are boils?"
"Dashed sorry," murmured Archie. "Acted for the best, meant well and all that sort of rot." Professor Binstead's mind seemed occupied to the exclusion of all other aspects of the affair with the ingenuity of the absent Parker.
"A cunning scheme," he said. "A very cunning scheme. This man Parker must have a brain of no low order. I should like to feel his bumps." "I should like to give him some," said the stricken Mr. Brewster.
He breathed a deep breath.
"Oh, well," he said. "Situated as I am, with a crook valet and an imbecile son-in-law, I suppose I ought to be thankful that I've still got my own property, even if I have had to pay $2,300 for the privilege of keeping it."
He rounded on Archie, who was in a reverie. The thought of the unfortunate Bill had crossed Archie's mind. It would be many moons, many weary moons, before Mr. Brewster would be in a suitable mood to listen sympathetically to the story of love's young dream.
"Give me that figure."
Archie continued to toy absently with Pongo. He was wondering now how best to break this sad occurrence to Lucille. It would be a disappointment for the poor girl.
"Give me that figure!"
Archie started violently. There was an instant in which Pongo seemed to hang suspended, like Muhammad's coffin, between heaven and earth. Then the force of gravity asserted itself. Pongo fell with a sharp crack and disintegrated. And as it did so, there was a knock at the door, and in walked a dark, furtive person who, to the inflamed vision of Mr. Daniel Brewster, looked something connected with the executive staff of the Black Hand. With all time at his disposal, the unfortunate Salvatore had selected this moment for stating his case.
"Get out!"
bellowed Mr. Brewster.
"I didn't ring for a waiter!"
Archie, his mind reeling beneath the catastrophe, recovered himself sufficiently to do the honours. It was at his instigation that Salvatore was there, and greatly as he wished that he could have seen fit to choose a more auspicious moment for his business chat, he felt compelled to do his best to see him through. "Oh, I say, half a second," he said. "You don't quite understand. As a matter of fact, this chappie is by way of being downtrodden and oppressed and what not, and I suggested that he should get a hold of you and speak a few well-chosen words. Of course, if you'd rather, some other time—" But Mr. Brewster was not permitted to postpone the interview. Before he could get his breath, Salvatore had begun to talk. He was a strong, ambidextrous talker, whom it was hard to interrupt, and it was not for some moments that Mr. Brewster succeeded in getting a word in. When he did, he spoke to the point. Though not a linguist, he had been able to follow the discourse closely enough to realize that the waiter was dissatisfied with conditions in his hotel, and Mr. Brewster, as has been indicated, had a short way with people who criticized the Cosmopolis.
"You're fired,"
said Mr. Brewster. "Oh, I say," protested Archie. Salvatore muttered what sounded like a passage from Dante.
"Fired,"
repeated Mr. Brewster resolutely.
"And I wish to heaven," he added, eyeing his son-in-law malignantly, "I could fire you."
"Well," said Professor Binstead cheerfully, breaking the grim silence which followed this outburst, "if you will give me your check, Brewster, I think I will be going. $2,300. Make it open, if you will, and then I can run down the corner and cash it before lunch. That will be capital." This is B.J. Harrison. I hope you've enjoyed this unabridged production of Indiscretions of Archie, Part 3 of 8 by P.G. Wodehouse. If you've enjoyed this book, you may also enjoy Something New, also by P.G. Wodehouse and Right Ho Jeeves. You can find these and other Classic Tales audiobooks at our website, classictalesaudiobooks.com. Thank you for joining me today and allowing classic literature to awaken your better self. Please join me next time, and we'll rediscover the greatest stories ever put to paper.